All right. Hello, both to those of us here live and to those of us watching the future recording, and welcome to this QuaverReady Circle webinar. Our topic today is testing season. I know many of us are right in the thick of it right now, so we are going to be sharing some QuaverReady resources that are here to support you and your students in navigating this tricky time of year. So we're going to go through a whole range of resources that will be across various grade levels and different student needs. And let me flip over to our agenda so I can show you that we're going to be focusing on 3 M's today. So first, we are going to talk about some mindfulness resources. Then we'll consider student mindset. And then we'll end with motivation. So those will be our 3 M's, getting students ready for testing season. At the end, I will share the QuaverEd testing toolkit so you can take that home to school and share with your colleagues and families. And then I'll have Q&A here for anyone who is here with us live. So with that, let's go ahead and get all the way in here. So I mentioned that first M we're going to talk about is mindfulness. So I'm actually going to take us into the QuaverReady platform to just a moment so I can show you where you can find some of these resources if you have not explored them yet. So if you are ever looking for mindfulness resources, one place you can do that is by logging into your educator dashboard, navigating to Resource Toolbox. And when you open up that toolbox, you're going to see a range of categories, one of which is mindfulness. So there are some resources already in here for you for when your students maybe are needing those grounding moments. They need that deep breathing to slow their heart rate or to focus when they're feeling stressed and really to calm down that nervous energy that they might get before that testing time. So when I open up that mindfulness category, I've got a few different options. First here, you're going to see some songs that are all associated with mindfulness. If you have ever been on any kind of QuaverReady event with me before, you've probably heard me play Count to 5 because that's one of my favorite breathing exercises. I'm going to mix it up and play us a little bit of a different one today called Relax Your Mind. Again, this is another great option to play right before students begin a testing session. Let's listen to a snippet together.
Close your eyes, relax your mind, let go of worries you feel inside. Take a deep breath in, now let it out. Focus on your breath and relax now. Breathe in joy, breathe out strain, breathe in peace, breathe out grace.
I almost hate to pause it there because I was really enjoying that mindful moment for myself. But for time's sake, I'll pause it there. Again, I encourage you to try out this full one if you have not yet. Excellent for students to kind of get them in that right frame of mind before they begin a testing session. And before I move on, I had a slight delay in my chat sharing with me, but I do want to say hello to Jenny joining from Miami. Miami, I was just there. Jenny, if we saw each other at those Miami counselor sessions, let me know. It's fabulous to see you again, if so. All right, moving back to that mindfulness category in our resource toolbox. So we just saw one of the song options. You're also next going to see some interactives. These are going to be some of our mindful reflection moments. So let's see an option like self-confidence. Maybe students need that little bit of self-confidence boost before getting a testing session. Let's take a little listen to this and think about how we might be able to utilize it with students.
What do you love doing that energizes you?
So you might notice there will be some prompts that it will read along with that calming music. You can also always come down here to this mixer function, open that up, and you can turn the dialogue off. That's an option if you don't want it to read any additional prompts. and you just want that quiet, calming music. So just giving an opportunity for students to sit, either close or unfocus their eyes and breathe in and out. So again, you can have those prompts on or off depending on what your students most need. I'll pause it there for now, but that does keep going for a few minutes of that breathing and reflection time for students, which could be helpful for them. All right. And our final subcategory here in that mindfulness toolbox are your printables. There are some awesome mandala printables in here. You'll notice there's several levels, so you can pick easier or harder depending on your grade level. But any level you choose, you open it up and you'll have some PDF printable options. So you could just print off a range of these. These are so useful for if you have early finishers, if you need them to remain quiet while others are still finishing testing, or it's at the end of the day after a long testing session and students just need something quiet they can work on independently, but that's going to feel good for them. Definitely recommend putting some of those out and having them on hand anytime. So again, if you want to check out any of those mindful resources, I navigated to there from Resource Toolbox. I opened that up and found my mindfulness category. And then I have those subcategories for songs, interactives, and printables. One more mindfulness piece that I would love to show you is something that was brand new this school year. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to flip over to my resources here. And that is taking a mini mental vacation. So, this is a great strategy to teach students for when they need that kind of personal self regulation or stress management time. So, if you taught this to students in advance, you could go through this how and why here so that they would relax their bodies, get into a comfortable position, then think about a place where they're going to feel happy or calm, and then try to really inhabit that space in their body and in their mind, even if they're not actually there. And then if I just move over to the next page of that screen, it's actually going to walk me through step by steps the steps to take a mini mental vacation. So we are going to try that out here together. I really want you to see what this feels like and think about how this might be used for in your space.
We have been talking about caring for our mental health. We are going to learn one more coping skill by taking a mini vacation together. But first, let's all get quiet and still. Imagine a place you feel very happy thinking about. It can be a place you've been before, somewhere you've always wanted to go, or even an imaginary place like inside of a game, movie, or book. While we will all be visiting different places, we will all use our senses to help us better connect to our happy places. First, think of 5 things that you see in your happy place. Next, think of 4 things you hear. Imagine each sound and try to hear them inside your brain. Think of 3 things you might touch in your happy place. What do they feel like? Think of 2 scents you smell on your mini vacation. How do you feel when you smell these smells?
For our time's sake, I will pause there. But again, this is about a 3-minute exercise. If you use that voice through, it will finish out those senses and then give students a little bit of reflection time to consider how they can use those feelings in the current moment. So I think this is a great strategy to teach students in advance. And then, even if they are in the middle of a testing session and they find themselves getting a little worked up, they could close their eyes, take a couple moments to take their own mini mental vacation, come back into their breath and body, and then be ready to continue. So another great mindful strategy that I wanted to point out for you. All right. And with that, that was our first of our 3 M's, mindfulness. Now we're going to move into our second M, or category of strategies, which is our mindset. So let's think about the mindset that students have going into testing to make sure that they're able to cultivate that positive mindset and maybe circumvent some of the negative mindsets that sometimes do occur around testing time. This can be a high stress time. So we want to equip students with either those affirmations or that empowering messaging that they can use to get themselves through these tricky times. So one resource that could be really helpful for students in this are the lesson mindsets. You're going to notice these in so many QuaverReady lessons on a variety of topics, but some of them are going to be very appropriate for these testing season times, such as this one right here. I know I can succeed if I persevere. So if you're not familiar with these lesson mindset screens, there's lots of ways that you can get these messages into students' minds and get it to stick with them. So let's try a couple here. You might start by listening to this portion of a song. Let's take a listen.
I know I can succeed if I persevere. I know I can succeed if I persevere.
So what a mindset to get into students' minds as they are going into their testing. I know I can succeed if I persevere. And we want to make sure that that messaging stays with them. So there are some gamified options students can play to keep it in mind. So some examples we'll take a look at. Maybe they want to play wacky words. So of course, they are going to need to use these parts of speech to help them fill in that statement. So their personal pronoun, I. Ask the students what the next verb would be. They can type or write it in themselves. No, I can succeed if I persevere. Oh, I had to persevere in spelling that for a moment. Again, one way for students to engage, make sure that they're getting that messaging locked in for themselves. There's some other options down here when you might be interested in is analyzing. So asking students to think critically about that statement. Again, the more they reflect on it and consider, the more locked in that's going to be for them. So another one you might choose to use with students is self-confidence helps me conquer all. Again, there's plenty of mindset options, so you can select ones that you feel like are really going to resonate with your students and what their current strengths and challenges are going into this testing time. Again, to show you some of the activity options you can do along with these mindsets, this is a crowd favorite, particularly with my lower elementary students. So when you click this game, students have to repeat the phrase, self-confidence helps me conquer all. But as time goes on, images are going to start popping up and covering up those words, and students have to be able to keep repeating them even as they lose that visual cue. So they have a great time chanting that, proving that they still know it, even if it gets covered up. And if they can do that, that means they can lock in and keep that mindset when they need it during a tricky testing time. Some others that students really enjoy here might be a scatter rebuild. So students are coming up and having to pull those words back into order. And you might even ask students to paraphrase, That's how would they state that in their own words? And you have the opportunity to write students' thinking on here to scribe. So those lesson mindset screens can be a really great tool to make sure students have that powerful messaging going into a testing session. As we're talking about mindset, we of course also need to consider growth mindset. This is so important going into these testing times, making sure our students are not just focused on getting the best score or whatever that may be, but considering, are they growing? Are they showing that growth? And that's really what we're aiming for in these tests. So in this type of mindset, you can go over with students and hear the definition of a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Let's take a listen.
A fixed mindset believes that physical and mental abilities can't be changed. If someone has a fixed mindset, they might make excuses about why they don't want to try something new or challenging.
But of course, we know that students can grow and change. So we are going to introduce them to the growth mindset instead.
A growth mindset believes that physical and mental abilities can be changed with effort and the right strategies. If someone has a growth mindset, they confront challenges and see failure as an opportunity to grow.
So then you can ask students to then practice their own growth mindsets. So an example that might be really helpful in a test, A fixed mindset might say, this math problem is too hard for me. Well, that growth mindset, they might instead say, this math problem is hard, but I'll try my best. And there's a few examples you could ask students to participate with. You could even make your own fixed mindset statements that are specific to testing season and ask students to flip them around into a growth mindset phrasing. But if you practice that skill beforehand, in the moment, if a student is feeling down, they can ensure that they have their own growth mindset, reflip that perspective for themselves, and hopefully continue just to give it their best as they're working. Another really fun way that you can practice growth mindset is through our Mindset Blaster game. So I'll show you with game mode off first so you can get a sense of what it looks like. And you're going to see in our character's brain an assortment of phrases. Some of them are going to be fixed mindset, some of them are going to be growth mindset. So first you can just ask students to identify which is which. So I give up, that would be a fixed. I'll never be as smart as her, that would be a fixed mindset. Oh, but this may take time, that would be a growth mindset. So you can go through those examples and let students practice identifying them. And then you can switch it over to game mode. So to play the game mode, it says, click each fixed mindset phrase to remove them from Lucia's brain. So when you click start, they're going to start popping up. And as they practice, they're going to get faster and faster. So let me show you just a little bit of an example.
One, check two, check 1, 2, 3.
Let's see, I give up. That's a fixed mindset. I want to get that out of the brain altogether. I will learn this. Ooh, that's a growth mindset. I'm going to let that stay. Let's see, my plan won't work. Ooh, fixed mindset. Get that out of here. I avoid mistakes. No, mistakes help us learn. There's always a plan B that can stay. So as you're noticing, these are starting to get faster and faster. So I'm going to pause it and tell you my favorite way to play that with students is that you could just have students who are clicking that themselves or calling out the answer to you. I love for students to show their answer by either sitting or standing. So to remove that fixed mindset, they might stand up and say, get it out of the way, and remain sitting for those growth mindsets. And as it gets faster and faster, they'll be up, down, up, down, up, down. I promise they'll be giggling, they'll be laughing. It will be a great stress relief if you need it. So try out that Mind Blaster and ask students to sit, stand. I promise you, if they're feeling a little stressed, they're going to be giggling after that. All right, those are our mindset activities. So let's move on to our third M, which is motivation. So I know I was always guilty of this. I know some of us are. We always remind students during this testing time of year to try their best. But students, one, might not know how to do that. And they also might not understand why they need to do their best in these situations. So we might spend some time thinking through that motivation of how and why am I going to give my best? So here's an example of how you might introduce that with students. So first you would be able to define motivation. And you're also going to ask students to consider internal motivation and external motivation. So you could go through those definitions, move on to some discussion questions. So thinking about, say, in your favorite after-school activity, what are some of those internal and external motivators that you use? The same at school, the same at home. And then even practice what are different examples of external and internal motivators. And then as you're practicing this, you can apply this directly to testing. So what are some of my external motivators for doing a great job on my test? Maybe you have some kind of school reward for students that make a certain growth percentage. And also their internal motivators. Maybe that student really wants to show their growth. Maybe they want to show how much they've learned, but really getting students into that headspace of why is it that I really want to try here? So that's one way you might introduce that topic. This is another one that's so fun because it gets students up and moving, which I think is so important during this time when they might be sitting either at a computer or a piece of paper at those tests for a long time. So this is the motivation groove. So when I click start, it's going to start to play the song I'm Motivated. Students will get up, move, and dance around. And when the song stops, they'll find a partner and answer the related question. So let's see what that looks like.
Motivated. Motivated. What helps me win? What helps me improve? What's the reason?
Oh, the song paused. So that means they need to find a partner. And it's going to ask them this question related to motivation. So this one says, how do you feel when you finish a task? So students would have the opportunity to think through that. Hopefully they're feeling some pride and some encouragement, and that's something they're going to take with them. And when you click OK, it'll start and it will have a whole range of discussion questions all about motivation. So a great way to get students thinking about that and to get them moving. So that's a win-win at this time of year. One more I want to show you about self-motivation is called a meeting the target. This is one of our upgraded screens that went in this fall to our 4th and 5th grade students. And it's going to think them through what motivates you. So you'll see there are some examples on screen and you could ask students to share their own. When do I need self-motivation? So thinking about those tricky times or those tricky tests, maybe it's a subject that they don't feel the most confident about. And how am I going to stay motivated? So this really puts that onus back on the student to think about, okay, this is up to me. What can I do to keep myself on track here and hold themselves accountable? So those are some self-motivation resources. That's thinking about the why they should do their best. Sometimes students need help with the how to do their best. So you might talk about something like time management and how that skill plays into our test taking skills. So if you see the examples in this lesson, you'll go through and listen to the scenarios, and students are thinking about all the things they want to get done in an evening and thinking about the best way to manage their time to accomplish them all. And there are some discussion questions to help them think about that. Then you could directly apply that practice to testing. So when I'm in the middle of a test, how can I use my time management skills? And that's when you're going to think about paying attention to the time and how many questions. And if it's something you're not sure about, make a note to come back, all of that good stuff. But that time management in one piece is one piece of how students are going to be able to do their best. I want to show you another one that I think is really important at the lower elementary level. Again, these friends might not know yet what it means to try their best or what does that look like. So this activity is going to give them some excellent visual representations of what that could be. So here it's a sorting activity. So students are going to see options and have to sort them into what might be a best effort, a good effort, a little effort, or no effort. So this first example is perfect for testing season. So you might see an example of student work where they answered all the questions correctly is best effort. One where they got to most of the questions is going to be a good effort, but the fewer and fewer questions they ask, the less effort they put in. And that would be the opportunity to talk about what they're expecting on that test. But there's plenty of examples in outside examples too. So maybe what does this look like at home when it comes time to clean my room? Or let's see, drawing a picture, right? So these discussions about effort and what does trying your best or trying a little bit or not trying at all look like, that visual might really help, especially those younger students going into a test thinking about, okay, what does my best effort really look like here? So, and those were our motivation resources. So I hope those 3 M's, mindfulness, mindset, and motivation, are kind of helpful buckets to think about what skills are your students going to need to be as successful as possible going into testing season. So those are all resources in QuaverReady. You can go into your resource manager and search any of them. This is going to be recorded, so you can always come back and find these. I also want to show you a resource that is available to anyone, even if they are not a QuaverReady user. At the end, I'm going to give you a link to access the QuaverEd testing toolkit. So this is a PDF you can share in your school or with your families. So you're going to see there are some options for before testing, some encouraging songs. All you would have to do is select the link, open up that resource. It won't require a login. There are some other reflection activities, some movement options, some of those mandalas I mentioned earlier. And I love this one. So even if you're a QuaverReady user, I encourage you to get this toolkit and try out this after testing activity. We borrowed this from our friends over at Quaver Music, and this is a movement song called Celebrate. So it's a chance for students to move and celebrate when they have completed the testing season. So I really recommend you downloading that to try out. That is a very fun song to dance along to. All right. And with that, as we're approaching the end of our time, my friends that are here live, do you have any questions? Let me take a look at the chat and see if I've missed any. For anyone that is watching this on recording, so glad you're still here. If you have questions, don't forget you can reach out to info@QuaverEd.com anytime. And I'll put that link in the, or put that email in the chat just to make sure that everyone can see it real quick. Again, our general questions, you can go to info@QuaverEd.com. Jennifer, no questions? Great. Thank you so much for being here. You are a star. I know this after school time can be tricky, but we appreciate you coming. I hope this is helpful to you and your students as you get through your testing season. And then I will leave you with some additional resources, again, both on screen, and I'm going to drop these into the chat. So I mentioned that QuaverEd.com testing toolkit. That link I'm dropping into the chat now. Again, that's available for anyone to download, whether or not they are a QuaverReady user. They don't need a login, so very easy to share. You can always keep an eye out for future webinar options at QuaverEd.com/webinars. And the one I'm really excited to share is that QuaverCon 2024 is back this summer. July 16th and 17th, we're going to have 2 full days of PD options. So there will be tracks for QuaverReady users, for Quaver Music users, for Quaver Health PE users. So if you sign up for your track, it's totally free. If you attend all the sessions over those 2 days, you're eligible for 16 PD credit hours. So I also put that QuaverCon 2024 registration link in the chat. If there are no other questions, all I can say is thank you. And of course, good luck. I know you'll make it through testing season. I'm wishing you and all of your students only the best. We'll see you next time.